These are being pushed back out to sea by authorities in Greece, put on inflatable tent-like rafts and sent back towards Turkey. That's according to the Turkish Coast Guard and numerous NGOs working in the region. To tell us more about it all, we can speak to researcher at the Irish Centre for Human Rights at the National University in Ireland in Galway, Niamh Keddy-Tabal. Thanks for your time. Firstly, Niamh, can you tell us more about what exactly is happening?
So what we've seen happening since March is that Greek authorities are now weaponizing rescue equipment, inflatable life rafts, to illegally expel asylum seekers from Greek islands and the territorial waters in violation of international and European law. So what we've seen is asylum seekers, after having already arrived on Greek islands or after having been intercepted in Greek waters, they're being rounded up, dragged out to sea, placed on these inflatable life rafts, which in some cases were damaged and simply abandoned at sea.
This, Niamh, you're saying has been ongoing since March. No reaction from the rest of the European Union?
Well, there has been some reaction. In July, for example, these incidents were raised at the European Parliament. However, the Greek government has continued to deny these practices.
Do you have any idea of the numbers? Looking at the Turkish authorities say, at least 11 in the past couple of weeks of these makeshift or these inflatable tent-like structures have been intercepted. What are you hearing on the number of people that have been taken from Greek islands or Greek waters and being sent in the opposite direction?
According to the latest New York Times investigation, this has happened to over 1,000 migrants involving approximately 31 incidents. 27 of those incidents involved life rafts. So the migrants were placed on the life rafts, and that's how they were pushed back. I, along with a colleague, Dr. Idemar Mann, recorded 11 of these incidents between March 23rd and the end of May, but they've continued since we published our first investigation.
And give me an idea of who we're talking about. Are these refugees, mostly from war-torn Syria, coming across from Turkey to the EU, or who does this concern?
This concerns asylum seekers from multiple different countries. The individuals that I have interviewed as part of my investigation majority of them have been Syrian.
You say that they were already on Greek islands, a lot of them, in which case would they have already started the process to apply for asylum in the EU?
In theory and according to obligations under international and European law, yes, but in practice this has not been the case. The incidents that we documented involved asylum seekers who arrived on islands. However, their arrival was not recorded by the Greek authorities. It's only through the migrants' testimonies and video and photographic evidence which we obtained that we are able to confirm that they had indeed arrived. They were not provided the opportunity to register their claims for asylum. In some of the cases, they were detained in unofficial detention sites. In the first incident that we documented on the island of Symi, the asylum seekers were told that they would be taken for a coronavirus test and transferred to Athens. Instead, they were taken aboard what we understand to be a Hellenic Coast Guard vessel and dragged out to sea and put into one of these rafts and left to drift.
So it sounds like they're being tricked to go back on by the authorities, to go back on, and then being left to their own devices at sea, completely abandoned.
Mm-hmm. After having had their personal belongings confiscated as well and having endured what in some cases has been severe beating.
And you said that the Greek authorities say that they are not breaking international laws. What is the Greek defence of all of this? How have they been approached?
To my understanding, they have not addressed these incidents specifically. When I published my investigation, we requested a statement, and the response that we were given did not address the incidents specifically. The statement that we received was consistent with other public statements which have been made, and that has been characterized by emphasizing Greece's compliance with international law, and in particular, they have also emphasized that they place a particular importance or emphasis on protecting life at human life. That is not what we have seen in reality.
And can you give us an idea of what happens to these people when they are pushed back into the Turkish side of the situation? If I remember correctly, the EU did have a deal with Turkey to ask Turkey to prevent people making that journey across. That seems to have come to a standstill, if you like, back in February. But what is happening to these people when they are pushed back out of EU waters?
Okay, so after they have been placed on the life rafts and been abandoned by the Greek authorities, they are left to drift in rafts which do not have a motor, and there's no way of steering them. The asylum seekers that we interviewed described spinning around, dizziness. In some cases, people were fainting, and waiting basically for the Turkish Coast Guard to rescue them. In some cases, this has come after significant delays. In all of the cases that we have documented, the asylum seekers were eventually picked up by the Turkish Coast Guard and brought back to Turkey, after which they were detained.
It sounds somewhat similar, at least, to the system that was happening off Australia's shores. I mean, is this something you're seeing elsewhere in the world?
Yes. When we first began to see these images of these tent-shaped structures circulating, we noticed the resemblance to the Australian practice of the orange lifeboats. However, there are some differences. The Greek rafts that are being used are not designed, they're not a vessel, there's no way to drive them. This practice, although it bears significant resemblance to the Australian practice, it is significantly more dangerous, in my opinion.
Okay, Ms. Niamh Tabal from the Irish Centre for Human Rights, thanks indeed for joining us and telling us more about this ongoing situation off the coast of Greece.